Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg, and it's always a pleasure to have return appearances from some of your cooler guests, and this is one of them. Hillary Theakston is the executive director of the Clearity Foundation, and like many of the guests on our Spotlight on the Community show, it's been a while because of the pandemic, but now you're back face-to-face, which I really appreciated. Hillary, how are you doing?
Oh, we're hanging in there.
Yeah.
This has been a crazy time, and fundraising during a pandemic isn't as much fun as it sounds. So luckily for us, our programs have been delivered virtually since day one. We are based here in San Diego. We're so proud to be a San Diego-based organization, but we've been helping women throughout the country. So the virtual program delivery, we really didn't skip a beat, but the fundraising side of it definitely took a little adjusting to, for sure.
Yeah, without question. Of course, you focus on ovarian cancer and something that, is it growing? Is it stabilizing? Is it going down? Are we getting better survival rates? Talk about that.
Yeah, well, I would say that the diagnosis rates are staying pretty steady.
Right.
It's around 24,000 women a year.
Right.
And survival rates, we're starting to see them creep up a little bit. But what I like to tell people is that 10-year survival rates are 10 years out of date by their very definition. So they still lag behind other cancer types, and that's not what we want to see. Progress cannot come fast enough for the women and families who've been impacted by an ovarian cancer diagnosis. So we've seen some encouraging new drug introductions and improved treatments. We still have a ways to go, and that's really important to continue to focus on.
And is it because of the research? We've chatted about what they call some of these orphan diseases and all that business, and it's a numbers game. Listen, I understand, but you know what? To that person who has ovarian cancer, it's a big number.
It is.
Whether it's one or it's two, for God's sake. On that, and the family. We look at ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. Not many people are afflicted with that, and you look at the whole, but those that are, man, it is just crushing, and no different than with ovarian cancer. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, no, it packs a wallop. One of the things that we hear from women and families who've been diagnosed is that this diagnosis can really turn your world upside down. And it ripples through. It's not just the woman who's been impacted, it's the family, it's the friends, it's the community. And so what we really try to do as an organization is support not just the survivor, the person who's carrying the diagnosis, but all of those in her community who are rallying around her and really trying to help support her as best they can. So one of the things you mentioned, it's a great point that diagnosis is huge in cancer survivorship and improving your cancer prognosis. And that has been an area where we just have not seen a lot of improvement. 75% of women are diagnosed in stage 3 and stage 4. And that's when it's hardest to treat. It has progressed. Sometimes we're dealing with metastatic disease. And so it's really a lot harder to treat successfully when you're already in stage 3 and 4.
Right, exactly. And so, but does that come from just more research behind it, and really, or is it earlier detection because people need to come in and we got to find an early detection test? Oh, I'm making up stuff, so I'm going along.
Yeah, no, you're right on. That's why we've made progress in other cancer types. So breast cancer, we have a really reliable early detection test, and mammography has been hugely successful in improving breast cancer survival. It's really important to know, I think, for your listeners to know that a pap smear does not detect ovarian cancer. While it does detect other kinds of gynecologic cancers, ovarian cancer is not one of them. And so the symptoms of ovarian cancer, unfortunately, unfortunately kind of vague and not that alarming or unusual. So we hear oftentimes that women, especially after they receive their diagnosis, have been experiencing kind of some vague symptoms for a period of time.
Wow.
Stuff that's unusual for them. Bloating, having some abdominal pain, urinary frequency or urgency, change in bowel habits, all of these symptoms that don't really scream cancer in and of themselves. So we don't have a great system for early detection.
Right. And, and again, as more research comes in, is any of it environmental? Is any of it, genetic? Is most of it genetic and none of it's environmental? I mean, and obviously it takes that research to do that, as well. And, and we know that's, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't ovarian cancer one of the fastest spreading, so to speak? And once you get it, it goes pretty quickly or not?
It depends.
Yeah,
As I know you appreciate,
right.
There's a lot of diversity
right.
in ovarian cancer.
Right.
And in part, that's what makes it challenging to treat, and it's also what makes it challenging to detect. So there are challenges for that reason. You asked a great question about genetic predisposition. I think that is such an important thing for your listeners to be aware of, that if they have a family history of cancer, there could be genetic tests that can tell them if they have an inherited mutation that places them at higher risk for developing any number of cancers, really ovarian among them. A lot of folks, I think, are familiar with the BRCA mutation because of Angelina Jolie. She carries that mutation, which places people at higher risk for breast and ovarian cancer. It's great to know if you have that, but that actually represents a minority of ovarian cancer patients. So we are still learning about this disease. We're still learning about the genetics. We're still learning how tumors behave, how they grow, which drugs they're sensitive to, which they're resistant to. So there's a lot of work being done to understand the causes of cancer generally and the causes of ovarian cancer specifically, but lots more to do there.
Right. Well, and listen, that's where the support comes in. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you are listening to Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by our sponsor, Mission Fed Credit Union, who's been doing terrific things for San Diegans for 60 years. We all know that research takes money. And money doesn't grow on trees, last time I checked. And if you know of a money tree, Hillary, let me know on this. But you guys have some events, Hillary, coming up in May, and of course in September, right?
Yeah. So this Sunday is our Teal Woman Gala, and we are so happy to be back in person, to be able to get together and celebrate the Teal women in our community. It's wonderful to be able to gather here in San Diego. That's on Sunday. It's at the Grand Del Mar at 5:00. And then we also have a virtual event. So during the pandemic, as we talked about a little bit earlier, we had to get creative about how to engage with our supporters and gather our community to really celebrate Teal women. So we also have a broadcast on the 22nd on Thursday.
Nice.
And so we have been gathering Teal Woman nominations throughout the country. So we've gotten hundreds of nominations, family members, friends who wanted to recognize the women in their lives who are facing an ovarian cancer diagnosis and to honor them. So we'll be honoring them at the Teal Women broadcast on this Thursday, September 22nd. There's more information on our website, which is Clearity, CLEARITY.org.
That's great. We're chatting with Hillary Theakston. She's the executive director of the Clearity Foundation. How did you get into this space? What was your motivation?
As we were talking about earlier, everyone just about has been impacted by by a cancer diagnosis.
Correct.
We lost my maternal grandparents far too young. They actually had colon cancer, so wasn't an ovarian cancer diagnosis per se. But I actually knew our founder, Dr. Laura Shaver. She is a prominent biotech executive. She was really a beloved member of our community, is a beloved member of our community. And when she was diagnosed, I was just so impressed with her commitment, not just to fighting her own disease with all of the advanced knowledge that she had about precision medicine, but she was committed to doing that for others too. She wanted to share that knowledge that she gained over her years, first as a bench scientist and later as a biotechnology executive. She wanted others in her situation to benefit from that. And I just found that to be so inspiring. And so my background is more in the corporate biotech and life sciences community, our thriving life sciences community that we have here in San Diego. Right. But this was really the first chance that I had to come over and do something that I was so passionate about, that was so near to my heart, which is helping people who are impacted by a difficult cancer diagnosis to have a better outcome and a better experience through that by really personalizing support. So that's really what drew me to Clearity, was the combination of cutting edge science and deep compassion and care, and understanding participants very individually and supporting their unique needs.
Yeah, and you brought this up a little bit earlier, Hillary. And no surprise, we talk about this quite a bit on our Spotlight in the Community show. It's the person who has the ovarian cancer. Obviously, you want to treat that, but it's the family members, the kids, the granddaughters, the aunts, the uncles, you name it. They're all impacted, with this, to say the least. And, your foundation is very aware of that, knows you got to treat everybody. You literally have to treat everybody on that. So what type of services do you offer for the family members?
Yeah. So we provide to both the survivor and to family members and caregivers. Mm-hmm. We help with treatment education that helps them be fully informed about the latest treatments, the latest research that can help them make their treatment selection in the most optimal way. We also provide psychosocial support. As we talked about, this diagnosis is a enormous stressor, not just for the patient, but for the family. So we help them to manage that stress, the anxiety that comes along with it. It's stressful to come up this learning curve. There's a lot of uncertainty to manage. And I think that actually that's something that the pandemic has helped us all appreciate, is when you have this much uncertainty in your life, when the future becomes more cloudy, that's tough to manage, and the resources, the support to be able to walk a less certain path when the future has become a little bit clouded, I think, is an area where we really excel, is to appreciate not just the clinical and medical side of this, right, but the impact that it has in the patient's life and in the lives of her friends and her community.
Yeah, without question. When we come back from break, Hillary, you want to, talk about that. You hit the nail on the head over here, and it's all about education. It's all about, knowledge and all that. And, when people are in that situation, whether it's ovarian cancer or someone's just had a stroke or whatever the case may be, I mean, we're not doctors. What is going on? What can go on? And just having that calming voice saying, "Hey, listen, this is the way it is," or we really don't know the way it is, and that's fine. That's fine as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, and what our listeners can do. As you've been on the show before. What can our listeners do to help support your efforts? Obviously get the word out about the foundation, what it does, and maybe go to the events as well. So we'll chat about that when we come back from break. How's that sound?
That sounds great. Thanks.
You bet. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you've been listening to Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, been helping San Diego's for more than 60 years, and we will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg, and we're back with Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. Again, doing great things for San Diegans for more than 60 years. We're chatting with Hillary Theakston. She is the executive director of the Clearity Foundation. This is September is Ovarian Cancer Awareness Month. I think it's just in general Cancer Awareness Month, for that matter. Talking about some of the programs they have, and you got events coming up. And so forth, but again, I want to get back to something that I think is so important, is that's education, and just letting people know, here's what you're up against, here's what can happen. You have a lot of support groups, the people that have gone through it and have survived, and now they're working with you folks to work with the people who've just found out they've a family member that's been diagnosed.
Yeah. So what we found, and our psychosocial support program was actually based on some focus groups that one of our large foundation donors sponsored. And they gathered family members and survivors together and really asked, what resources, what support do you feel like is missing on the ovarian cancer journey? And one of the things that we heard is that while group support is helpful in many respects, it can be difficult for women who are facing this disease and have unique concerns that they might not feel entirely comfortable sharing in a group. It can also be sometimes when there are points of high stress or anxiety, it can sometimes be distressing to other members of the group who are not experiencing that in the moment. And so what we heard is that, well, there is a great place for group support. Being able to talk to someone one-on-one, a professional who knows this experience, who is a trained counselor or oncology social worker, is really game-changing. Being able to talk exclusively about your unique situation, about the very particular concerns that you have, and to be fully honest about your feelings without worrying about how you're going to impact other survivors who are listening is a huge relief to women who oftentimes are concerned about making their family stressed. So they don't want to be, completely transparent about their feelings. They feel like they need to protect their family members. So. Right. Actually,
maternal.
Yeah, I know. So actually having someone to talk to one-on-one, we have found makes a dramatic difference in the stress levels that patients and caregivers are experiencing. So we feel like that's a really important piece in this, is being able to provide the emotional support, helping people with communication skills. Sometimes that can be an intimidating conversation to have with a physician. So being able to encourage women to be empowered, have high agency in the questions that they're asking to prepare for their doctor's visits, we've heard that is just hugely beneficial. The education piece is also, as you pointed out, it's vital. The amount of research and knowledge in cancer is exploding. It's hard enough for doctors to keep up with it.
I was going to say.
So, and you mentioned the challenge of a layperson. Folks feel like they're drinking from a fire hose a lot of times. So they're trying to do research and figure out, well, is this research even credible? Should I even believe it? Is it even relevant for me? So to have a scientist or a highly trained member of the Clearity team who's able to say, who's able to actually understand what their clinical situation is and deliver the research and data that's relevant to them, it saves a lot of time, it saves a lot of anxiety and stress, and it makes a big difference. We also help patients find clinical trials, and not every patient is even made aware of this as an option. And for some women with ovarian cancer, entering a clinical trial where they are testing the drugs that will eventually, some of them will become standard of care.
Right.
They'll become improvements on the current standard of care, is really a very promising option. And clinical trial enrollment is a huge stumbling block in cancer drug development, because less than 5% of all cancer patients enroll in a clinical trial. So by helping our participants identify clinical trials that could be promising and perhaps have better clinical outcomes, fewer side effects, we're not only helping each individual participant have a better outcome, but we're helping to speed those drugs that are the ones that are going to become the improved treatments of the future. We're helping to speed their introduction into the market and make them available to more patients.
Yeah, that's a great explanation on this. Now, just thinking about this, again, we're chatting with Hillary Theakston. She is the executive director of the Clearity Foundation. With enough nonsense out here in this world, I mean, that could be another 50-day conversation, but a lot of it with disinformation about, what is good for you. And never seen the medical community attacked as much as it has over the last couple of years. Being the son of a doctor, my dad passed away many years ago. I'm not sure how he'd be handling this. I happen to have a lot of faith in the medical community for many different reasons. Not perfect by any means whatsoever, but it's science, something that they just don't know. And you said, you have to have somebody on top of their game to say, is that the right lab study that we should be basing X, Y, and Z on? Has that, and some of this stuff that's out there, this disinformation, seems to be that's what we love to do now in this world. Has that hurt you guys at all? Has it slowed you down? You go, we're going to leave that nonsense over here. We got a mission to take care of.
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I would say that for someone who is in the fairly serious position of being treated for ovarian cancer, or if they are in remission, potentially thinking about the possibility that they might have a recurrence and what they would do if they did. I think that for most folks, there's not kind of the same risk of being lured away from hard science, from medical interventions, which we know to be effective. So I haven't myself observed that kind of dynamic creeping. And again, I'm not speaking with patients every day, but I have not heard that expressed by our clinical teams. So I think that's a great point and something to keep an ear out for.
Listen, I mean, I think without question, you hear it all the time. My former industry, journalism, gets accused of fake news. Now, we don't do fake news. We have news you may disagree with, and that doesn't make it fake. It just means you just disagree with it. And so forth. And the same thing probably, in the medical world as well. And these are very serious things, to say the least. And so, just curious on that aspect of it. But I really do encourage our listeners. The Clearity Foundation is the go-to place when you're talking about ovarian cancer in terms of research, services, people to chat with. They will answer any question that you have and point you in the right direction. And especially, as you had mentioned, listen, there are not too many cancers that aren't stressors. We understand that, but there's certain that might be raise the bar a little bit. And ovarian is one of them. We all know what stress does to cancer. Okay, it exasperates it in many cases, and you guys just do a great job with that information. I know you're rooted in that information and so forth. We got about a minute or so to go. What can our listeners do to support your efforts?
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for asking that. All of our services are provided 100% free of charge. So we simply could not do this work without the generosity of our donors and our supporters. And right now, as you can imagine, financial support is more important than ever. We're living through a period of economic uncertainty,
right.
And folks are struggling with that generally. So, connecting with Clearity, if you have any interest in providing support and really having an impact in the lives of women and families, I think our donors are very satisfied to know that their donations are having a direct and tangible impact in the lives of the families and women who are facing this disease. We also have an amazing group of ambassadors who are out there spreading the word. And that has been such a joy to work with this community of women who are working to make this experience for much better for the next generation of women who might receive this diagnosis. So I think helping to build awareness, helping to provide financial support that we need to support ever larger numbers of women and families who are turning to us for support are the main things.
Well stated, Hillary. I think, you can't talk about it enough. You can't get the word out about it enough, whether it's ovarian cancer or, juvenile diabetes, or pick a topic on this aspect of it. And, we have enough challenges as it is in this world, even when things were maybe a little more stable, but certainly here. So always good to see your smiling face and all the great work that the foundation does. And I know you'll come back on again and chat about some of the other things that are going on with the foundation. And, if appropriate, bring somebody on that has benefited from, what you folks have done, and some people love to share their story because it's an inspiration to others. So if that's something that's an interest of you, and somebody that has been involved with ovarian cancer, has had ovarian cancer and wants to shout you guys out, would love to have the person on.
Would love to do that. Thank you for the invitation. That would be great.
We'll consider it a done deal. We've been chatting with Hillary Theakston. She is the executive director of the Clearity Foundation. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and you've been listening to Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show here from the Mission Fed studio in Scripps Ranch.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.